Okay, I'm glad we got you out a little bit early, son. I'm gonna tell everybody we're taking you out of a meeting, but we appreciate it absolutely. Assume that we're gonna get started here. We are certainly want to welcome everybody to our November meeting. We're a week off, but certainly because of the holiday, that's understood. We are going to begin as we do. Um, as we say in the country, decent and in order. In the Country Baptist Church, our religious affairs chair, our own minister, Bridget Edwards. Minister Edwards, if you open us up, please.
Good evening, Madam President, and to all assembled. Let us go to the throne of grace. Gracious, eternal God and Father, we give thanks to you for yet another day. God, we invoke your presence into this meeting on this evening. God, we ask that you would allow us to increase our understanding. Oh Lord, we pray for those that shall impart knowledge unto us, that you, oh Lord, by your Spirit, would engage them and allow them, Lord, to speak to your people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Minister Edwards. And so we want to, this is a very important topic. It is very near and dear to all of us. And as I watch all the things in education, um, my first thought was to call my senator. I guess some of y'all's on y'all's too. There's that. But we need a person who is fearless when it comes to education and the way that we treat our children. We understand that there have been multiple bills that are going on, and I know that there was a press conference of sorts down in Miami-Dade with UTD and some of the other UPAC and some of the other groups. But we want to certainly, when we want the facts, when we want to get the community the facts, then we call on the Reverend, Doctor, Senator, all those things to make sure who's there on the boots on the ground to let us know what's going on and get our marching orders. Kind of we got to have an action alert. But we first have to understand what's really happening. And so, with that, I want to go ahead and ask our senator to please tell us what's going on and how we got here. And then at the end, we will discuss what it is we need to do as a community, as an organization, as we move into this space. And with that, our own Senator, Reverend Dr. Rosalind Osgood. Senator, if you would.
Thank you, Madam President, my NAACP president. It's an exciting joy to be a life member of the Fort Lauderdale Broward branch of the NAACP. And I tell them that as I visit NAACPs across the state. So if you guys would just allow me a few moments, I think it's very important that we be very specific. We cannot just allow people to use words without understanding what those words mean. So, right now in the education space, what we're seeing is this whole push for white Christian nationalism. They first rolled it out in Project 2025. They implemented some of the bills in the old big brutal bill. Some of you may call it beautiful. It's nothing beautiful about it. It's the old big brutal bill. And now the state of Florida, the first state, has signed on to what they call the Phoenix Declaration. And I'll explain to you what that is in a moment. When you hear Christian nationalism, that is not the Christianity that we profess, those of us that are Christians. Christian nationalism is this political ideology that blends Christianity, usually a very narrow conservative version of it, with American national identity. So, to be simple, Christian nationalism says that the United States was founded as a Christian nation and should be governed according to Christian principles. But those principles are often defined by whoever the political leader is at that time rather than by the scripture. So when you think about America as a Christian nation and returning it to its Christian roots, it's depending on who's saying what those roots are. And if we're really going to be America, should the government only reflect Christian values? How do we exclude all of the other taxpaying brothers and sisters that may choose not to be a Christian? So when we think about this whole Christian nationalism, it excludes anybody that's a non-Christian, Jews, Muslims, atheists. And Madam President, some of us say that we are Christians, but our behavior don't always line up. So it excludes everybody else, and it oftentimes distorts Christianity because white Christian nationalism is focused on power and dominance and control rather than any teaching that's tied to Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was a Jesus of liberation that did not like oppression, that had compassion, that stood for justice and against injustice. So we got to be clear when we hear the word Christian that we don't get duped with it. Christian nationalism is an anti-democratic action because it excludes people and it has people so over the top now. It's why we saw that insurrection on January 6th and the attack on the U.S. Capitol. So I kind of just couch it in my thinking as a modern day cult that we're seeing play out right before us on national television. So when you think about Project 2025, it is what? A conservative policy blueprint led by the Heritage Foundation, the same people that authored the Phoenix Declaration. And what they're doing is they're reshaping the whole federal government by reducing all of the safety net programs. That's why the president was withholding SNAP benefits. I don't care if the president, Democrat, Republican, Independent, if the government shut down, you should never withhold money that people need to feed themselves. But it's reducing all the safety net programs. It continues to increase executive control and promote what they call traditional family. So those of us that are single parents like myself, it's not a model for us. You got to have your husband, wife, and your 2 kids. Any other model of family don't work for them. So when we look at the one big brutal bill, and that bill was signed on July 4th of 2025, it began to put much of this vision into law, cutting these social programs, reducing taxes for corporations where they can get higher earnings, reducing funding for education, shifting around the departments of education, eliminating some of the departments of education, increasing border enforcement. This is all of the same plan. All of these things are tied together. And that's what we must understand. We get them in bits and pieces, and then we react because we don't tie them all together. So let me just add one more piece as I moved on. Last legislative session, the House had a bill to have schools of hope co-locate on school campuses. We never had a bill in the Senate. We didn't want to hear the bill. So this legislation came the last 2 days of the session in a budget item. It never went through the whole process that bills go through. So what is the School of Hope? It's a state program targeting struggling public schools. It gives a private charter chain, one private charter chain, access to public buildings, millions in state grants, and access to a $1 million low interest fund loan with minimal oversight and limit control. So for me, as we move forward to talk about education, we can no longer talk about charter school takeovers, say how they taking the money. We have to call it what it is. Christian nationalism, the School of Hope, Project 2025, the one big brutal bill, they all, as it relates to education, drives a thought and policy to privatize education. And Florida is at the leading force of it. And that's why you see us doing all these things first. So if you have the schools of hope, and you know, Madam President, I'm petty, so I'm going to go dig, I'm going to go read. So I found that in the state of Florida, we already gave $500 million to the School of Hope private school, a privatization effort to take over our schools. We gave them a $1 million loan that they've used about $98 million of. And by the way, I still haven't been able to get somebody to tell me how they pay the loan back and how much interest. So we've already given them that money. So now this policy comes through that says a district must offer unused and underused buildings to schools of hope operator, a charter school franchise like a McDonald's and a Burger King, the same kind of concept. The decision of what goes on moves from the local school board that you and I elect to private companies or whoever they want to put on these boards. But it's our tax dollars. So when you continue to drain the money from the public school system, you see the superintendent laying off people. You see them trying to right size buildings. All of that is because Tallahassee keeps taking away the money from the public school system. So if you take away all the resources, it almost makes it impossible for the school system to survive. So if you're in a district school, you have to serve every child. You have to hire teachers that are certified. You have to provide ESE services. And you get all of these audits, including Doge. In the schools of hope, you can limit your enrollment. You can enroll who you want to enroll. You can hire uncertified teachers. You don't have to follow any of the regulations. And you can reduce the services. Now, let me just make it clear how insane this is. So, say I'm a traditional public school and I'm going to co-locate with a school of hope. I have 100 students and the school of hope has 100 students. When the state pays the traditional public school, my school, they're going to pay me. I have to put in paperwork for 200 students. Although I have 100 and the school of hope have 100, I have to put in my FTE paperwork and capital outlay for the whole 200 students. They're going to give me the money, and then I have to pass it on to the School of Hope, the 100 students they have. I have to give them the money for those 100 students. But we're on the same campus. But I have to pay for the maintenance. I have to pay for the security. I have to pay for the light. So with my money for my 100 students, I'm going to give them a pot of money that they can pay their owners and their teachers and do whatever they want with the rest of it. But I also have to pay for their maintenance, their facilities, their securities, the lights, and everything else. In what world does that make business sense? It don't. When you get into co-locating, it is a problem to have the two schools in one buildings like that, and they're not on the same page. You can't force charter schools into existing public school buildings and have them co-locate. If a kid gets hurt, who's going to get sued? Who's responsible for dialing 911? Are they going to have the same uniform? What time are they going to go to lunch? It just really, really makes absolutely no sense. But this is all an attempt to privatize our public schools. And when we get into, excuse me, when we get into privatization, let's be clear, it drains our resources. It forces us into larger class sizes. We have less money, so we have fewer counselors. We have fewer electives. You've been hearing Broward District talking about the block schedule and playing with that. That's because they're trying to find money. They're trying to find a way to make the schools work. Some things we're going to have to just stay the course. We got to have the children with their personalizational periods. We can't change the schedule to save money and impact academics. At some point, We just got to stand up and say certain things are non-negotiable. But it also cuts your money to give raises so your teachers and your staff don't stay. And it just causes this whole big problem in the school system. So I will say, before I take questions, we have to start calling it what it is. Schools of Hope is not no public reform. It's not something to help children that are poor. It diverts resources. It decreases our control because we don't vote for the board members, and it outright harms our students. I believe that every student in a school in Florida deserves a school that's fully funded, and that it should be a community-centered school where the community is able to interact and know what's going on. When you think about a school building, that is our asset as taxpayers. Why in the world would we hand it over to a private chain that we don't own, that we didn't even vote to do, that you didn't even get a chance to go on the ballot and say that this was going to take place? It was just something that was put through the weekend education. And who gets hurt the most? We know low-income families, Black and brown communities, people where English is not their first language. The students with disabilities, most of the time, they don't even take our students with disabilities that need us most. Rural districts are also impacted by this. So this whole notion of privatizing education is why you saw the state of Florida Department of Education sign some kind of pledge about the Phoenix pledge that they signed. So Senator Rouson has sponsored a bill, Senate Bill 424, and I've co-sponsored the bill entitled Education Facilities, to delete all the language in that other bill that make it mandatory for local schools to co-locate with the Schools of Hope. Delete all the language that make the local school districts have to give the charter schools the capital outlay, money and all of that kind of stuff. So we've started to kick back and fight against it from a policy perspective, but we don't want a mandatory turnover of our school. We want our local school districts to be in control of our school districts. If they want to cut a deal with a charter school, we want them to do that and be able to negotiate fairly. We don't want to force the co-location. And we want it to go through board approval, because through board approval, there's a time for community input. So you and I will have an opportunity to give our input. And we want to protect the culture and safety of our schools. I wouldn't want a Muslim kid going to a school and being forced to talk about Christianity. That's not the place for it. That's why we have our churches and our mosques and our synagogues. But we have to begin to fight this in a very strong way and call it what it is. Christian nationalism is not the Christianity that we talk about every day. It's so far away from the Bible, they should be ashamed of themselves to even attach the name Christian to it. Because the God of the Bible, the Jesus of the Bible, was loving, compassion, and inclusive, not no hierarchy or superiority. And remember, this Christian nationalism, it's the same thing they use to justify keeping Black people in slavery. Remember, when this country was founded, we as Blacks, we wasn't even a unit, because then they would have to give us a vote. Women, we wasn't even heard of. We had to get amendments after we was Black, and women, we still couldn't vote. We had to get amendment after amendment. So when you say the country was founded on Christian principles and you want to go back to that, quote unquote, make America great again, it was only great for the elite few. And Marsha, I'm gonna close by saying this. I was in Montgomery a couple of weeks ago doing a professional development training at the People of Color Conference for our substance abuse programs at Naacp. And I went into one of the museums there, the Bureau of Justice Museum there. And as I was reading and following what was going on, they talked about how when slaves were freed, they could no longer stay on the plantation. So guess what they did? They identified somewhere in town and they created a tent city. Sounds familiar? All of this stuff. Yeah, we got to stay woke, y'all. And we got to continue to have these forums and we got to continue to speak truth to power so that we can continue to be a voice for our people. I'm not willing to surrender our schools to the state, to Christian nationalism, to schools of hope. I'm gonna be in fighting as long as I got breath in my body because I care about all these little kids that's coming behind me.
And so I know, Senator, there were on the first group. Let me just say this. I was at, and I don't recall it. Maybe it happened when you were the school board member. Maybe it did. I don't recall another school board member who was at a district, not at large, having a unsolicited meeting, community meeting, to discuss schools in your district. Now, it maybe it did, and I missed it. I don't remember that. But when I saw the flyer, I did attend. We talk about staying woke. A meeting that was in Dr. Holness's district, just this past Monday. And so I rescheduled another meeting that I had because I wanted to see what this was about. And so there were um, parents there, and they were mostly talking about things that are going to affect their kid, the 7 block and this sort of thing. But the newest appointed school board member was there, and he was tap dancing, saying a lot of stuff. He's a litigator by trade, an attorney. He was practicing in Miami-Dade, and you could tell he's got the gift of gab. Talked a lot, didn't say nothing until it was time to point the finger at his fellow board members. And so, there were questions asked, and he was against everything that the people said they were against. Mostly, not a black crowd there. I asked him about the schools of hope, and so he talked a lot. I was like, okay, but where are you on this? What's your take? Do you support? So he was like, well, no, I don't support it as is, but then if we tweak it, and then it could, those schools that need more students, it could help them. So basically, the new school board member is saying that he supports the School of Hope. Which means that to me, he has no issue with Project 2025 and any of those things that are going. He is a true DeSantis disciple. So we have to, how do we make sure the best way that we advocate for, as I'm asking you to speak, I know you're in the Senate now, Doc. I know that, but you were my school board member for a lot of years. Did a lot of good work together. First of all, did that ever happen while you were there? Um, and when should that happen again? What are your thoughts on that as far as us from the committee and as an organization? Because I understanding that I just thought that that was just foul.
So let me just say, on the school board, you have districts for a reason. You have two countywide board members. And I was on the school board with a different group. We didn't always agree, but we had a level of respect and we would work together in each other's district. I don't ever recall a time where a school board member from another district called a meeting in my district and was partnering with a local elected official in that district. Um, that just kind of should never happen. That school board member could have had that meeting in his district, with the elected officials in that district. Now, I'm going to give him a little grace because I've been in for a while now, and I've learned that sometimes when people are on the school board or they running for school board, they don't always know what their district is. You can ask them and they can't tell you. But I think that we have to continue to advocate. We have to support our local school district. We have board member Wholeness, Dr. Wholeness, who I think a lot of, I'm really close to, that's my brother. We have to support him. Sometimes I think he's a little too nice with things. I've watched meetings where I felt that he was being cut off, or when it was his turn to talk, they were saying, well, we got to hurry up, we got to move on. Well, everybody else been talking. Jeff needs to talk as long as he wants to talk. You ain't gonna hurry up and move on. So we have to continue to go to those meetings and show up when stuff like that. And sometimes ask the question like, what, I couldn't be there. I would have been at that meeting too. Like, I'm very surprised that this meeting is happening. It's happening in my district too. I'm on education and education approach in Tallahassee. I didn't get invited to participate in the meeting, didn't know about it, just kind of saw the flyer on Facebook. But I think overall, we have to continue to get the truth out. We need to be texting, tweeting about what's really going on with this attempt to privatize education. The school board is going to have to make some decisions. And when you look at kids in the numbering, the 9.5 years I was on the school board, we said that we had 30,000 kids in charter schools. Well, that can't be accurate for 9.5 years, but that's what we said. Then we went through COVID, and I don't know if you remember, Marsha, where the teachers union, we literally went knocking on doors looking for students and found that a lot of those people had moved. We look at our population and it's aging. So I do believe that we need to right size our school buildings, but whatever decision is made with those assets, the school district needs to benefit from those decisions. So it can't be something like somebody come up with an idea and they think the school board is supposed to lease them the building for $1 for 99 years. That doesn't allow the school district to benefit from the asset. That's our asset as the public. So I think that we need to look at how we can build in more workforce programs. Everywhere I go, I'm hearing they don't have enough workers, don't have enough teachers, don't have enough law enforcement officers, don't have enough aviation people to fix the planes, to direct the planes. So there are a lot of educational opportunities. I personally would like to see more partnerships with the city in the school board. I think about that executive airport that we have out there. Some of our children can go out there and learn how to fly a plane and fix a plane. It's right there. Lockhart is just kind of out there. We always went out there for the baseball game or the football game, but now we got opportunities that we can help them learn how to do the planes and stuff. But you have to stay tuned to what's going on in Tallahassee. And I so much appreciate the NAACP for doing that. I'm in the Senate. I can't always pay attention to what's going on in the House. I do try to stay up with the Department of Education because that's kind of my thing. But I got 12 other departments. I got a Family and Children's Service. I got FDLE. It's a lot. But together we can stay on top of these issues and continue to speak truth to power. And I'm just going to say this as well. And this is just me. When you are elected official and you're a Black elected official, sometimes you need people to stand up for you too. Thank you for going to that meeting the other night with school board member Dr. Holness. Sometimes you just out here and you fighting all the time for the people. But every now and then you need somebody to stand up for you too. And I just appreciate the NAACP and you for continuing to do that. And I wanted to say that publicly tonight.
Yeah, and just so we all know that Dr. Holness does not stand in support of this whole, this Heritage Foundation and its vote, and or any of those such as the Schools of Hope, that we'll know this other school board member is up next year. So what he's doing is trying to curry favor and let folk know, or he's trying to fool us. We'll just say that, to say that he's there, and he is. I mean, he didn't answer many of the questions. Question was raised. It's funny how you're over in Dr. Holness's district instead of in your own, trying to have having this meeting. I felt like he was disrespectful, because when you're in a formal setting, you should say, Dr. Holness. He's there saying Jeff, which is very disrespectful. I felt he tried to bait him into speaking, even though it was not. It was, sunshine's a thing. I felt like he was like, "Oh yeah, come up and sit at the table," so that it could appear that he was all in. A very messy. And he is a good soldier to the current administration. And so I don't, tell anybody who to vote for. I just present the facts. So, we have to really be mindful. And I'm told that there were a list of 27 schools in the first round that the charters wanted to co-locate with. And then I'm told that there is a second group with an additional list that are getting ready. I think the district has had, Sonny said, 20 days to get back with them. How likely is it to for SB 424 to get that passed? What can we do on our end to make sure that you all are successful as
So the first
community?
thing you can do is make sure that all of the senators co-sponsor. So let me just say, right now you have all of those charter schools sending those letters to districts, right? The way that I understand the existing law with the schools of hope, there still has to be a contract. Okay, that's the process. So if Dr. Hepburn is going to enter into any agreement with them, first of all, there has to be some conversation with an agreement, and Dr. Hepburn has to get it approved by his board. I don't see it as something that can happen immediately. A lot of times when these things come forth, they get going in the media and on social media, these letters, and we overreact. So if I was in the district right now, I would be seeking legal opinions about them even sending me those letters. Because here is the thing, when they look at right now, they're not even calculating, I think, correctly schools that are what the real fish capacity is for the school. Because they had a school in that school board member's district, the technical school that's in his district on that list. Because the formula that they're using does not account for adult students and it doesn't account for ESC clusters. So you got to get the facts right first before you can make any determination. They were also looking to go after some schools in Western because some legislators that represent that area say, oh, they going after the high performing schools. Remember, the schools of hope whole thing is that they're A schools. So they're not really trying to get schools where they got to do a lot of work because they know that education is not really their focus. So I think we should encourage the school board to do their due diligence with legal, maybe get the NAACP involved. I see it as clear discrimination. It's no way a charter school can move and co-locate and don't have to take all the students. That's discrimination. Don't have to take the students. I guess they only gonna take the Christian students. So I guess now when you go sign your kid up for school, you gotta say what they religion are, and maybe they'll even ask you a card or something to prove it. So if you're looking for a church home, we'll take you at the no, no, just kidding. But we have to continue to make sure we have the facts with what's going on and not overreact. I would love to see how your lawyers interpret that Schools of Hope statute marcher. If they see it like I do, where there has to be a contract. What I found a loophole in, okay, say if the traditional school is negotiating with the School of Hope and they don't agree, then what is the next step? That's where that's what I don't see. So who then weigh in and say which way the contract should go? It should just die. If the school district can't, in any other contract that they don't agree with, it just go away. But I don't know that that's the case with the Schools of Hope because I know that the person that is the owner of the Schools of Hope also gives a whole heap of money. Notice I didn't say a lot because it's beyond a lot, a whole heap of money to a certain political party's campaign. So it's kind of like a kickback in a sense. If I could say it with a little grace, it's kind of like a kickback in a sense.
We I think that the community has to wake up. I see that as I said, United Teachers a Day. I have not, and I must admit, I'm not exactly a fan of the president of BTU. And but we do, in this time, we have to figure out something in order to work together. I will check with our general counsel's office and see, and I also check with our lobbyists to see what is in the works, because it's only, we all know it's leading in one direction. We have been, and we suing everybody. And the president CEO said, not only are we suing them, we winning. I.e., Texas, it goes on there. So if we have to catch the questions, um, please put it in Q&A. But if you may not have any children in the system, but you know of a child, you have family members, or you just care about the children in your community, because we are headed in a very bad direction. Now, I can say that I knew that that whole 7 block thing when I saw the parents that were there, that were advocating. I knew there was going to be a change to that, and that affected their children. But the difference is we don't we're not active, we're too quiet as far as the kids in our community. I was over, Doc, at Virginia Schumann Young on yesterday, and I had an opportunity to see the good things that are happening there. And I know, a lot of people are trying to get into the different programs. But if I recall, you had the same program put into MLK before you left. I know there was a method to the madness, but can you tell us about the resources that you had put into MLK Elementary before you left?
So if you recall, Madam President, this is not Broward County's first time repurposing schools. When I first got elected, we went through the repurposing process. And a part of that process, Walker, MLK, all of those schools were in bad shape. And when I started digging, I realized that there were 100 kids at BSY that was bounded to Walker. So I began to ask myself, how could the kids go to BSY and it's an A school, and Walker was doing very poorly at that time. Well, during that process, I found out, I think it was like 20% of the kids at Walker wasn't coming to school 30% of the time. So that means we had to put a caseworker in there to get them back into school, because if they're not there, you can't teach them. Then I found out that they had this Montessori curriculum over at BSY. So to make a long story short, we ended up putting it at MLK. We kind of convinced the vice principal to come from Virginia Sherman to MLK. And once I found out about the Montessori, I loved it so much that I actually went to the training myself, because it's more project-based and hand-based, and it doesn't group the kids by age. They get to work together across levels, and it's more of a peer type education thing that our kids really love. So the first couple of years that it was in MLK, I think MLK was like fourth or fifth in the state with their math scores. And they just continued to improve with it. So I don't know what changed or how that shifted. I am aware that MLK no longer has Montessori. They changed the name, because Bear was also the middle school for it. And it was my desire that we could get to a point where we would even have a high school that a child could go through a whole Montessori track for 12 years, because the curriculum is really great. So I don't know where the decisions was made or what happened, if it was a part of merging Broward Estates to MLK. I don't have that level of detail as to why there's no longer Montessori there, but I am a proponent of Montessori. Wellesley Elementary is not a quote unquote Montessori school, but for years the teachers there have integrated Montessori. Bear also had a strong Montessori program, Bear Middle, where you can elect to put your kid in that program, and it was doing very well. So I'm not the school board member now. I'd have to go back and find out what happened, or perhaps Jeff can tell us with that Montessori decision. And let me just say, I don't know if we have any educators on here, but we know some educators. Maybe we need to start thinking about starting our own schools. We're responsible for these babies.
Maybe we can get the same deal the other private's getting.
Yeah.
I do know I was at MLK, I think about 2 weeks ago. There's a sister there that is, I mean, they've given them um, practically everything that she has asked for. I mean, the school is very clean. They are good when it comes to devices. They've got pretty much all of they're not one-to-one when it comes to laptops. They've got some work to do. They're going to be getting some. But the fact that the administration there at MLK is okay with that, and what they said to me was, well, the community didn't want to go. So out of the say 150 or 200 kids that were left at Broward Estates, only 50 of them elected to go to MLK. Now, there were some folk that said, the parents that we met in meetings, that said, well, I don't want my kids to go to Montessori school. I said, well, what do you think? Why is that? Oh, I don't know. I just don't want them to go. But do you know what Montessori is? No, I don't know. I just don't want them to go. So part of it is us not understanding. Although if you say Montessori at Virginia Schumann Young, we be trying to get up in there. So that's a thing. And part of it is the district not telling the community what it is and the advantages of it, I believe. Because there were some parents that they didn't know why, but they just know if it's Montessori, they don't want it. So we got to do a better job of that. And then you had the principal said that the teachers did not stay, that they got the certification and then they left, and you can't make them stay. And she believed that there was little to no turnover over at Virginia Schumann Young. But on yesterday, the principal says, yes, there is turnover, and we don't have to have all certified at the time of hire. The district pays for teachers to get certified while they're on the job. So I know that there are a lot of good educators, a lot of good school leaders that look like me, and I believe that if the proper a full-throated effort was put into that, getting MLK up to par when it comes to Montessori, to not just have it a school with, when we had some problems there, we admit that, but we get the same resources that they are making available to VSY now, we could do the same thing. And I did speak to Dr. Holness, and I actually spoke to Dr. Hepburn on yesterday. And so, but the administration has to be willing, and I get it. It's hard to be out there by yourself when you don't have other people that's saying that. But I can tell you that the diversity committee is going to be all in, and we want to know why we can't get the same thing. We're going to ask for, and I remember sharing with talking to you, and I knew you had gone to the classes and you know the importance of it. But I think I want everybody else to know that we're just not taking whatever else, because they're gonna, when Norfolk goes, the kids are gonna be at different places as well. So we have to make sure. I got a text for a question. The question is, can you explain SB 424 again, and what will it do? Should you be successful?
Okay, certainly. So SB 424 is a bill that's entitled Educational Facilities. And what it does to the actual bill is it deletes a provision authorizing a school of hope to co-locate with another school in a public school facility. It also deletes the provision, and I'm talking bill and legislation, and I'm doing it this way intentionally. It also deletes the current language in the bill, the provision requiring a school district to permit a school of hope to use an underused, vacant, or surplus district facility. And then it deletes the section that requires for students enrolled in a school of hope be included in the school district's total capital outlay full-time FTE funding. So Senate Bill 424 puts some parameters around the schools of hope. It ends this mandatory turnover. Like a district, the current language say a district must co-locate. So it deletes that language. It gives the district back control of the facility so that if there's a negotiation, they have to negotiate it fairly. It eliminates this whole forcing this co-location thing. And then whatever the district does, it has to be at least approved by the district school board, which is elected by you and I. So it gives us an opportunity as the public to have some kind of input into what's going on. And it also strengthens the oversight of the schools of hope. Like they can't just go in, and take the property from the district in the way that the current language is. So it gives the authority back to the local school board and to us as a people, rather than the way that the bill was just thrown together and the language was pushed through. If we had time, if this bill went through the proper process during the last legislative session, we could have worked all of this out then. And when you look at the money that's being assigned to, remember that I told you that the state of Florida has already given $500 million to the schools of hope already, for them to build facilities to operate already. We didn't give that same extra $5 million to the public school system. We didn't give it to St. Thomas. We didn't give it to Westminster American Heritage. When you deal with policy, you have to understand the budget piece that's tied to it, because budgets are moral statements. Budgets are moral statements. A budget will tell you who is valued and who is vulnerable. And what we continue to do with the state budgets as it relates to education is we make the public education system more and more vulnerable as we value charter schools and now the privatization of schools, which is very different. They're doing it through charter school franchises, but this whole privatization of public education, this also impacts the public charter schools as well.
Who do you mentioned earlier, Doc, that they don't have to, charters don't have to, even though they're cohabitating on our campuses, they don't have to follow the rules of the district. Who do the charter schools actually answer to?
So when you have like right now, you have public charter schools, they have their own boards, and they are political appointees or whoever they decide to be on the board. They're not people that you vote for. The charter schools that we have that are operating now, and there are a few of them that operate well, they have their own standalone building that they're in. What this bill is doing is it's prioritizing one charter school operator who has no history in our community, don't know our community, and it's saying that they can co-locate. So you could have Walker doing pre-K to 5 and the School of Hope in the same campus doing pre-K to 5. Make it make sense. But Walker will have to follow the school board that we elect. They would have to all give the charter school the money for however many students they got, but Walker from their budget would have to pay for all the facilities, all of the maintenance people, all of the transportation, all of the security. It just don't make sense. I haven't figured out. I said, well, Lord, are they going to make the public schools even pay for the lunches on the other side? Like, what are they doing, the schools of hope, with that FTE money that they getting? They can decide what they're going to do with it.
So they would be in the cafeteria, because I spoke to one of the directors on yesterday, and they said that is controlled by, even the seasonings that they put in the food is controlled by the district, because you get kids with allergies, all the different things. So do they have to, would they use our cafeteria?
They can use whatever they want on the facilities and do whatever they want. They teachers don't have to be certified. They don't have to take the ESE students. They can put their own student code of conduct in. So they, it may be, say one school may have a uniform policy. They don't have to have that. They don't have to take children with disabilities. You can go and enroll your kid there and they can say, no, we're not taking it. That's not the way schools that use public dollars don't work like that. But this is what's happening with the privatization of the public school system.
And security how does that work with the district and its security? And and the charter schools? Because I don't know, how do you know which one is which? I guess,
Well,
I don't
they
know how
all
you
got to
do that.
have armed security. You wouldn't. Just think about it. If children, let's say children get into an argument, you don't know how you're going to delineate which school is responsible. What's their discipline matrix going to be? It's just a whole bunch of questions that could have been addressed and answered. But this is what happens when you push public policy through and you don't follow the process. You don't allow for intellectual capital to be a part of the decision making. We elect people to represent us. Y'all elect me to go to Tallahassee and be y'all voice in these meetings. I tell my colleagues, with this bill, they didn't allow me to do my job. They denied me access to do my job. I didn't get to speak on this bill in one committee meeting to ask my 30 questions because I got a list of them. But they didn't even give me the opportunity to do my job.
So should we know we got you, and we know we got Senator Roos on. Should we be contacting the other senators?
All of them, every single one of them, all 37 of them. It doesn't matter what political party they're in, all 37 of them. And we're three short right now because one senator is now the chief financial officer for the state. The other senator is the lieutenant governor. And we got one, I guess he's still there. He was there today, but he just got appointed to be the chair of the National Republican Party. But he was there today. He is actually my friend. So, yeah, but everybody, all the senators, all the representatives, not just the people that represent you, everybody. And you need to get all your NAAC people sending emails from wherever they at. All the groups, the Deltas, the AKAs, the links, everybody needs to be weighing in about how we don't want public schools privatized.
And so I know I think there was a letter that went out from the House regarding some of these issues as well. I think they were talking about part of the issue, which was the Heritage Foundation and that quick vote. But I think I'm assuming that, and I don't know this, that means that they are on the same side. At least those are, well, those, I think there was the Black House of Representatives. Those are for the Black Caucus, I think.
So, from my understanding, the Department of Education made this move. The House, I think, Minority Caucus sent out that letter, and then two House members was in the news. On the Senate side, we sometimes wait for more information because if we don't see a bill on our side, we can't, if we don't have a bill, that means it's not coming to the floor. So we're kind of at a disadvantage. Like sometimes when there's no bill and you start moving, they'll say, well, there's no bill. But there's certainly conversations about it. I've certainly brought it to the Senate caucus attention, and we will have some discussions about it. You know me, I do a lot of my work by going directly and talking to people. I write sometime, but I knock on doors and they'll say, are you here for prayer, for conversation? I say, well, both today. But that's the way that it go. But it's just something we have to let people know that the Department of Education signed that pledge. And it was no vote from none of us on that. I don't know. I'm trying to find out how does the director of the Department of Education do that without consensus from the House, the Senate, and the governor? How does that person choose the spirit that education is going to take place in the whole state of Florida without any of us being a part of that? That's the bigger question for me.
So they just make it so, and it's the law of the land, just with no vote, no.
Yeah, I know. He just signed the pledge. If I would like to offer a pledge, I would like to offer maybe like the 23rd Psalm, or, if we're going to do it in the right way. But I didn't get that opportunity. I'm sure some other people around the state got pledges too.
So this ruling goes for charters. How does it work the same thing for church schools or any of that, or is it specifically charters?
So if you're talking about the Phoenix Declaration, if they're saying that that's how we're going to move forward, they're basically looking to make all schools teach through curriculum and everything Christian nationalism. So it would be interesting to me how they would get away with that when they're funding schools like Muslim schools, Hebrew schools, Jewish schools are not schools that subscribe to Christian nationalism. So I'm expecting those communities are going to be pushing back as well. But when they start saying, when you pledge something, it's just like, you know how when we do in the organization, you have your mission statement, your vision statement, then you have your core values. So that Phoenix Pledge is kind of like the core values that they're saying these are the core values. We want to, teach kids about Christ. We want them to have good moral behavior. And we know that's kind of Bible because the Bible said we all sin and fall short of the glory of God. So they're kind of using that declaration as like the core values. And then I believe they're going to come back and try to set curriculum or set things up around it. And now that we've given out, we had an audit this week and we did miserably on the vouchers. I mean, we missing so much money where people were overpaid with these vouchers and stuff. And, somebody got some money sitting somewhere that they getting a whole bunch of interest off. It was just a big thing in the Education Appropriation Committee in the Senate. So now these CFOs that administer this voucher money, so now we got to figure out how to get this money back from them. Parents, didn't get money for their kids. Some schools that had kids legitimately there, the kids showed up being enrolled in a private in a school for a voucher in a public school, but it's clear they was in the public school. So now we're trying to reconcile. Now I will say that we did the Doge on ourselves and had the audit to find out what was going on with the voucher program. So I do appreciate that. But we got to get the money back that people got that they shouldn't get.
So who gets hurt the most on this, Doc? When we talk about a heritage program, when we talk about the schools of hope, who is really going to get hurt here?
So who's going to get hurt is our kids. 80% of the kids go to traditional public schools. So let's just be clear. Poor families, Black and brown communities, English language learner students. So that means, in Broward, we have a very diverse student population where, there's a lot of Brazilian students, a lot of students that speak Portuguese, Spanish, Creole, just a variety of languages, students with disabilities. In those schools of hope, in those type of schools, they don't have to have interpreters. They don't have to do things in multiple languages. Also, rural districts. Rural districts have little resources as well when we talk about this. I just think this whole notion of privatizing education, it just allows us, it's just another vehicle to make things less equitable for our students. It kind of broadens this gap of inequity as the way that we do our schools. So if we were going to put forth policy, what we need to do with public education is we need to make an investment. The same 500 million we putting in the schools of hope, let's put that into our public school system. Let's give them something where they have stable funding that they could plan, that they could grow. Let's make sure they have money where they can give high quality staff. When you're on a school board, sometimes you put in a situation where you got to give everybody a 2.5% raise, not because you think they're doing a bad job, but it's literally all the money you have. Can the state not help push down a lot of these old school buildings that were up since the 60s and 70s and help our district modernize these buildings so that they look more attractive, so that kids feel more better, And when we think about our community organizations, and I always get in trouble when I say this, but I'm going to keep saying it. If you're a community organization and you feel like your organization is working with kids, that's what you feel God has called you to do, I'm going to ask you to consider whatever area you want to work in, going and having a conversation with the principals and finding out what the school really needs. If Walker needs help with reading, and I'm running a math program next door to Walker after school, I'm not aligning myself. We got to try to broaden the arms of the school district. We got to be an extension of the school district. Maybe when we think about our programs, we need to start thinking about having a Saturday school somewhere from 9 to 1 where we can get tutoring for our kids. We got to realign ourselves to work better with the school district so that we can extend. Everybody got a program, everybody got an idea. They want to come put it in the district. They want the district to pay them. District don't have money to pay you because we're not giving it to them in Tallahassee. So we need to get that.
So don't try to use the district as a come up.
They don't have the money to do it. And I'm for Black people getting contracts. I'm for all people getting it through a fair process. But right now, education is so grossly underfunded. Like at Mount Olive, we have the tutoring on Monday night or Tuesday night there. It's free. Nobody's charging the district anything. We got to make the sacrifices that we need for our children. We can't be the ones that's taking the resources. I just get, every time I look around, somebody talking about the community, I'm like, these people don't live here. I'm here, this is where I live. They're not speaking for the community. They don't even know most of the people that live here now. We just got to get it together and put our kids first. That's my why. I wake up every day to make the world a better place for the little boys and the little girls that's coming behind me. That's my why. That's what keeps me going.
And I wanted to make it clear that Dr. Holness, they wanted this. There was a rumor, a lie. I'll just say that he wasn't going out in the community. Now, maybe you're not going out in the community, so you don't be where he is, but that's not true. He is out and about. Now, I was at this meeting the other night, and somebody said, and one of them looked like me. Said, "Oh, nobody's having these meetings and these talks." That's not true. Maybe you're not going to those meetings, but before you decide to say whether that's true or not, why don't you, well, you can actually contact his office and find out where he's going to be, or invite him to your organization to speak if you really want to be concerned about the issues. A lot of people, until it affects you personally, then you have an issue. If somebody's going to say, well, Norfolk Elementary is going to close, and what about the kids? Are we when it was mentioned by the district a year ago that Virginia Schumann Young was no longer going to be a Montessori, they're going to change it from total choice. I was at Fort Lauderdale High, and it was thick, and they had their little T-shirts, and they were together. When they announced that was a plan, I did say to Dr. Hepburn, I was like, that I can't say the word because y'all know. I was like, that ain't gonna work, and I was like, so he was new, and he kind of fell in his lap. I was like, bro, that stuff ain't gonna work. And then when I went to Fort Lauderdale, I was like, mm-hmm. But they came out to advocate for their kids, and they were certainly successful. We've got to do the same, and that means more than just putting something on Facebook or whatever. You've got to make sure that we attend these meetings and get the correct information. If you all have a question, please put your hand up. Doc, I know that there were, and I don't know if it's a state thing, what the district was doing for programming, or is there money to children that are unhoused that the state gives, or is that something that the district was dividing, taking another chunk out of there? But when you were there, do you all do something with that?
So when the district has a whole program called a HEART program. It's a program centered around helping homeless children. And when I say homeless, some of the children are sleeping under the bridge, but some of them, their families are staying in rooms at different places. There is no housing money that comes from the state to the district to actually house kids in that way. Sometimes you have different ways that families can get support. So we had Lauderdale Manors as a resource hub. So a lot of those families would go to Lauderdale Manors and they would see case managers over there. That's the department that Anton Hickson was over. And those case managers would connect them to like Family Success, ModCo, other community-based organizations, or if they qualified for women in distress to try to help them get housing. You would have to ask school board member Wholeness what they're doing with that whole resource center because we also had a clothing bank over there where families could go get clothes, they could go get food. But that's what Lauderdale Manors was turned into doing repurposing. It was turned into a family resource center to provide some of those extra services and wraparound services, counseling for moms and dad and those kinds of things. That's why Watkins and all of them, that was all a part of that at Lauderdale Manor. So I'm not sure what's going on in that building now.
But there's nothing that the state does specifically for that. So if they're doing whatever is happening is coming out of that one pot of money that they
It's
have.
coming out of that one pot of money, yes.
Okay. All right. And Dr. Holness, I think he's double tasking here. If you can, I'm gonna just give you the opportunity to speak. If you can, just pop on. But Doc, we've got something going on at Modco again this year on this, I believe it's on this coming Saturday.
Yep, I need you there by 10 so we can give out our turkeys. We having a free turkey and food giveaway. Send your people through, come through. We're going to be giving out turkeys. We have about 500. We have all the fixings that go with the turkeys. We also going to have vouchers where people can go on Tuesday and get free produce and vegetables and stuff. So we're responding to the government shutdown and the messing with people's SNAP. Dr. Davidson has declared that we're just going to be that church that when the government shut down, people can come for support. And we, are so grateful for our partnership with the NAACP, South Florida Hunger Coalitions, the other Mount Olive nonprofits, all of those that continue to support the work we do. We're going to take care of the people, y'all. We're going to keep taking care of them. So, Madam President, bring your work shoes and let's get it on Saturday.
And I won't be the only one from NAACP. There will be others as well. And then I'm just gonna say, if you wait to 10, there is no, unless you change it this year, Doc, you ain't gonna be able to drive east on Sistrunk, cut through and cut in front of other people. There's a method to the madness. And I did receive a call from Randy Washington of Fort Lauderdale PD. I was like, brother, you need to come early, not at 10, because the line will be long at 10. And sometimes, people get a little testy when you tell them, so they will be there no later than 9:30 at the latest. I'm thinking about, I was going to text you and say maybe we need to make it 9:15 because,
Yeah,
we have.
I talked to them this week and they said 9:30. And we forgot to get permission, so I'm gonna ask for grace, but Miss Burrows always allow us to park in her parking lot.
Well, she's gonna be there, so she was, I self-reported this year, Miss Burrows. she she gave a
Yes,
thumbs up.
yes, I did. Yes, it's no problem.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We're self-reporting because we want to make sure, but we need the parking there. But we have and they're not unlike some of the other places. Doc, you're not asking for paperwork. I know that there was sometimes we have some families that may not, have all their stuff, and they, you know,
It's a
we
sign to
don't work
have
for ICE,
need.
right?
Yeah, that's intrusive. When you're needing food, nobody should. It doesn't matter how many people in your family, what your income is. You need what you need. So no, we're not doing that.
And I know that some places are, but we're not one of those places. We have some people that were resist, and there are people from all over that come. It's not just it's black, it's white, it's Latino. It's everybody that comes, and it's a first come, first serve basis. And it's good food, and it's people that are, well, she's got a whole system. What is this, the 20th year that you're doing it?
22nd, I think.
And
Yeah.
so we have there's a method to the madness, but there's always people in need and nobody's judging you and all those things. And so I know that there are some places that you have to register. There's some places that you have to show your ID, and we had some people who probably were not from originally from here, that were afraid that to come and get the food because they may not have had, certain documents. But we're just, if you're a person and you're there, we just want to make sure that you are taken care of. Is there anything else that you can think of that we need to share, Doc, that we need to be doing? Maybe a reminder of any organization that we need to, that we can do and should be doing. I certainly, I will check with, I know we have a meeting that's coming up, and I will talk to the state president. By the way, his father died, and they're setting up all of the, in Indian River County. Mr. Hart was a 50-year branch president.
Wow.
He established the branch there. He also established the Masonic Lodge there, the Progressive Voters League. He was from Cat Island, and even before he was a citizen, he was working behind the scenes because he knew the necessity of it all. And so he will be laid to rest on the 28th. But in the meantime, certainly the work goes on. I will certainly, and I'll also speak to Pamela regarding the efforts, and I know we're going to be partnering with other organizations as well. That along with the redistricting, and hooray for our efforts in Texas. Folk mad, but we've got to do some things there as well. And we have I see another another life member of the NAACP hopped in the race for governor, and this, whenever he's in the area, we'll make sure that one of our members also always gets on, and he is fully paid. So just so y'all know, and so we can have that working as well. Are there anything else that you need to share with us so that we can do our part when it comes to schools?
No, not at this time, but I will certainly keep you posted. Just keep answering your phone when I call.
Dr. Holness, are you able to speak?
Yes, Madam
Yes, sir.
President, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Awesome. Senator Osgood, thank you as always for coming on and sharing such informative details as to what's coming out of Tallahassee and how we need to respond. You are always appreciated. Thank you so much for working with me as well closely to help me to understand issues that impact education. So thank you very much. Madam President, I also want to thank you for the wonderful service and your commitment to the Diversity Committee for Broward County Schools. And thank you for always being in touch with me to share the concerns of the Diversity Committee as you visit schools. And I just want to also mention, as you mentioned, Madam President, I do not support the Hope Schools. I believe that all entities should pay their fair and balanced share of expenses when it comes to educating our students. And I don't think that's what's going to happen here. So I am not for it, and I don't dance around it. I am definitively not for it. And I will defend that any day. I believe that every entity should pay for their fair share so it doesn't impact our traditional students. Also, Madam President, I did hear the concern or the question regarding Lauderdale Manor. I will get back to you to provide you with all of the details as to what they do at Lauderdale Manor. And I know you had some concerns with MLK and the Montessori. We are working on that, and I will get back to you on that as well. So just want to thank you for having Senator Osgood on. It's always wonderful to listen to her input and the concerns coming out of Tallahassee.
Thanks, Doc. I've told you this before, and I'll say it publicly. The district does have a lot of things going on that are positive and that are good, but they
Yep.
continue. It didn't just start to
Mhm.
not tell the stories, the positive stories of things that are happening. I don't know
Right,
what I'm told that you have what your PIO people do, but
right,
nobody knows anything about about what not enough people, I'll say,
right,
the community, the good
right.
things that are happening at schools. And we'll just talk about your district, as far as that
Mhm.
goes. And so I would urge you to speak again with the superintendent, for his staff and communications, because this all is not well when it comes to communications with the district.
And Madam President, you're absolutely right. So what I have been doing, and contrary to what was said by that one particular individual, my schedule is very packed each week, visiting different organizations, different groups, and I have been updating everyone on the positive things happening across the district and in District 5 specifically. I mean, if you look at it just this school year, if you look at the fast testing results, prior to that, we've had 27 C, D, and F schools, and now we have 26 A and B schools. We also have many first. For example, Board Anderson became an A for the first time in history. So did Oriole Elementary. So did Plantation Elementary. So there's so many wonderful things happening, and we've seen significant improvement also in our students in the lowest, who traditionally would be in the lowest percentile. Those students have made significant gains, as well as our ESC students, our students with disabilities. So there are a lot of positives, as well as we understand that we do have to continue to focus on improving our schools, especially, for example, our customer service, our aesthetic appeal, as well as continue to focus on academic improvement. But nevertheless, we have had significant positives in District 5 and across the district, and we've been an A district for the last 2 years. So I'll continue to try to get the message out. I'll have conversation with the superintendent to see how we can continue to promote the positive things that are happening. And a lot of the programs that we have in Broward County traditional schools, you will not find those in charter or private schools. So I think we do need to do a much better job in promoting the kind of programs that we have and the positive things happening in Broward County schools.
Okay, one more thing, Doc, if I may. So we were at Parkway recently to discuss the construction that's going on there. And I
Right.
want to say somebody mentioned Dr. Senator Osgood's name.
Right.
Um, but as I recall, I don't know if that was 2022, where, and correct, I don't know the year, Doc, but I know that you were telling the community there, and there was a small group on this Broward Estates thing, then where you tried to get like, what's it, K through 8 or something, and that if they
Right.
didn't, the population was, was not such, and even for kids to be district to go zone to go there, it wasn't going to work out to unless you're trying to stand alone. But they left that part out about how, somebody told you that wasn't going to work out well for Broward Estates if you kept that same mindset. And so they continued on, and now, we are here. So and if I'm going to ask you again, I asked you at the meeting as well, a Parkway and those tearing down, I think it's like 11 buildings and what's been promised. And is that project fully funded?
Yes, that project is fully funded. There is $42 million allocated for that project. And, I would be remiss if I did not mention, Senator Osgood started this conversation a long time ago, and I just happened to take the baton. But this is based upon the foundation that she has set that led us to this point, to which I ensure that they are carrying out exactly what we intend for Parkway Middle School.
And you see, Marsha, the thing that they don't understand, the original plan was not to push down and give them new buildings at Parkway. That's why I delayed the project. You can't continue to repair buildings that were put up in the 70s. You don't know what's in the walls when you get in there. So that delayed their project, but I'll take the hits for it because I felt like the kids that look like me deserve new buildings just like kids get in other areas. And that's why we were discussing the K through 8, because as you're rebuilding, you save Broward Estates by combining the campuses, and whatever you bring on new, you can upgrade the technology, you can offer more programs, you can get the 3-year-olds in. But the community continued to fight it. And then they tried to position me saying that I already had the district doing the K through 8. I was ignoring the community. So I let them vote. And when they voted, they said they didn't want it. And I said, okay, I'm going to leave it alone. I was leaving. I was at the end of my tenure. So I left it alone. So now we're where we're at. And I think what's most painful about this is a lot of that little group of people who causes you a lot of heartache when you're a school board member trying to do things for kids. They don't have kids in the school system, nor do they really care, I feel, about the kids. They care more about aggravating the school board member or some persona that they have to just fight you all the time. It's no way you can be really listening and caring about kids. And we're saying to you, we have to do something here, or this school is going to shut down. The state is going to take it over, and you continue with the same nonsense. I spent years getting accused of stealing $20 million, and you don't touch any money on the school board. So I tried my best. I'm proud of the things that I was able to accomplish on the school board. I'm proud of the things that Jeff is doing. But it is really difficult sometimes when you're a Black elected official and people vote for you, the majority of them, to lead in the area. But when you're on the school board, everybody always know more about what's going on in the schools when you do. And it's just not true. They don't have access to the information, the data, the things that you're looking at. You're looking at things on a granular level, but they want to come to meetings and dog you. They want to go out and say your name and this and that. And I prefer if people gonna call my name, at least let me be in the room so I can defend myself or say what I gotta say. And I'm still in the state now fighting this same battle. And they still on the same page. Now they know that they got to close the school or repurpose the school. It's done happen. And they still don't see it. It's not Jeff doing it. It wasn't me doing it. It's coming from Tallahassee. I'm there. I'm telling you, this is what they're doing all around the state. But you
Right.
have that same little group of people. I guarantee you, I can call all 7 of their names because it's the same people every time. And they don't have our children's best interests at heart. They just get that little community over there and they won't sit down and come to the table and work with you. And they just try to aggravate you and fight you and go out and spread erroneous information instead of really using their resources for something constructive to help build our schools and our community.
Right.
God bless you, Dr. Holness.
Thank you, Senator. And Madam President, I just want to mention, long before we repurpose Broad Estates, I spoke with the senator about what's coming out of Tallahassee, and there were already in the background brewing intent to occupy or to do other things with the schools that are under enrolled. So when I get that information, long before we learned of Hope Schools expanding their program, I looked at Broad Estates and I made the decision based upon community input that it would best serve the community if those students are transitioned into MLK and Plantation Elementary for those who wanted that option. And so we've repurposed Broad Estates into a functioning pre-K program along with other community programs such as GED, ESOL, and so on. And I would say thankfully we did it because Broad Estates being significantly under enrolled would likely be one of the schools that would be considered for Hope Schools. So in hindsight, it was a very, very important move that we made with Broad Estates that is significantly beneficial to that community, where that school may not be considered now in terms of Hope School occupancy. So I thank the senator because when we were looking at repurposing schools and Broad Estates came up, I wanted to know everything that's coming out of Tallahassee so I can make a better decision. And she provides me with that. And I think it would be important for, I think, board members, and I'm hoping that they're doing that with other senators and state reps to get as much information that's coming out of Tallahassee, because it's really important to have that sort of concerted effort and information being provided to make the decisions that we make. So long before Hope Schools came up as an issue, I've already learned from the senator that there are things that are brewing in Tallahassee that could impact schools. And so I decided it was best to move ahead with Broad Estates, and I'm glad we did. So thank you, Senator, for always being there to provide me with the necessary information that I need.
She tried to tell you, and it was the
Yeah,
same people. It was the same little
yeah.
people. But thank you, Dr. Holness, and thank you, Senator. Um, and with that, do you want to make any closing remarks, Doc?
No, I'm just gonna say thank you and good night. I'm gonna jump off. I'm about an hour and a half, 2 hours late to the Black Caucus, so I need to show up to represent y'all there. But I look forward to seeing you guys on Saturday as we put the smiles on the faces of people in our community that we're able to make sure that they have something on their table for Thanksgiving.
And you have our continued support, Doc. If all hearts and minds are clear, those of you who have not joined, please make sure that you do. NACPFTLBroward.com. The only thing that's missing from the struggle is you. If you have not already subscribed to our YouTube page, please make sure you do that. NACP Fort Lauderdale Broward spelled out. This video will be up along on our other social media pages. Minister Edwards, if you please.
Madam President, and to all assembled, let us go to the Lord in prayer. Gracious Father, we are thankful for what you have allowed us to learn on this evening. God, for this discussion and this increase in our understanding. We beseech you now, Father, in the precious name of our Lord Jesus, asking, oh God, that you would grant covering, knowledge, wisdom, strength, and direct the path of Senator Osgood as she represents your people. God, we pray and lift up our school board member, Dr. Holness, that you would be with him, be with the NAACP and this community as we move forward. God, may you continue to bless your people in all the ways they stand in need of as we prepare to depart from this call, but never from your presence. May you, O God, be forever, O Lord, in our hearts, in our minds. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
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 Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Appreciate you.
Good night.
Good night.